Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita. With this setup today, we are implementing an additional approach to communicating with the media and, more importantly, directly with the public. This live virtual event enables members of the media, as well as citizens themselves, to hear updates directly from me, and in terms of the citizens, without filtering through the bias of the press these days. I will continue, though, to do numerous one-on-one interviews with the real media, just like I have always done. And between me and my outreach teams, we will continue to travel the state interacting with constituents directly, because it's from my constituents directly that I get my marching orders. We're going to take questions during this approach as well, so please submit them to press@atg.in.gov. That's press@atg, for Attorney General, .in.gov, and we will address as many as we can get to. But from time to time, we will do updates like these to share important news from our office. So today, I'm going to cover two topics, ESG and protecting the unborn. ESG investing is a strategy employed by large investment managers, think BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, to invest money based on so-called environmental, social, and governance policies. That's where the acronym ESG comes from. The environmental, social, and governance policies of public companies, rather than prospects for financial return on investment. For example, ESG investors make deliberate decisions not to invest in any fossil fuel companies, regardless of prospects for financial investment return, simply because the investors are more committed to battling what they think is global climate change than to making a return for the savers. Other ESG goals include implementing critical race theory in corporate training programs. This specific type of investment is disguised to appear as a good deed, good for you, good for the planet, perhaps, but it strays from the obligation to put the financial interests of individual savers first, rather than the political objectives of investment managers. These are usually activist-driven agendas intended to achieve radical environmental and social policies. My office is fighting back by issuing today this advisory opinion. It can be found on our website, and it affirms that Indiana law, and it's not new law, Indiana law requires that the Indiana Public Retirement System, otherwise known to us as IMPERS, that their investments be made solely on the financial interests of Hoosier public employees and retirees. We all deserve assurance that state retirement funds are being invested solely for financial interests. More importantly, any other commitment or stated purpose is unlawful under Indiana law. ESG investment strategies represent a threat not only to individual retirees, but also to the larger national economy and to democratic policy-making processes. Now, by all appearance, I want to be clear, the IMPERS board members to date, the ones here in Indiana, have steadily worked hard to serve the best interests of Hoosiers, and we're grateful for them. But increasingly, actions by outside investment firms, those that they are more often than not forced to deal with, these outside investment firms hired to manage Indiana's investments, threaten to ultimately erode this financial stability. So we must look at those investment firms, those investment managers. We must root out investment management companies that scheme to leverage Hoosiers' retirement funds to advance leftist social causes instead of return on investments, and bad economic agendas that they couldn't otherwise implement through the ballot box. And not the corporate shareholder ballot box, but the ballot box that we all use as citizens when it comes to regularly scheduled elections. The increase of ESG investing has begun to negatively affect state pension funds across the nation, and I don't want that to happen here in the state of Indiana. With this opinion, though, I'm going to make sure everyone knows, from the investment managers to the savers themselves, what the law is here in the state, and that the sole duty of the IMPERS board is to focus on the savers and their financial return. And that's not only covered by Indiana statute, but it's also covered by federal case law. Woke big businesses, are collaborating with their leftist allies to subvert the will of the people. This includes investing Hoosiers' pensions in ways that work against the best interest of Indiana families. So our advisory opinion makes clear that oftentimes pension funds to advance social goals rather than maximize financial returns is not only unconscionable and unethical, but it's illegal. There is a duty of loyalty, there is a duty of care, and that duty of loyalty and care goes solely to the financial interests of the savers who are in these funds. In addition to the opinion that we are issuing today, we have gotten involved with like-minded offices in other states to investigate ESG practices. We are working with the state of Arizona to look at BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street to see if they're investing with other goals or with the goal of, under the duty of care, to return a financial financial return for its savers. And again, in Indiana, like other states, if the goals are other than a financial return, there could be issues. So we're looking into that. Then with the state of Missouri, we're looking at Morningstar, the rating company. There have been reports that Morningstar is rating the viability and stability of companies based on things other than their financials. And if that's true, that could also run afoul of the law. And then I'd like to announce today that we are also joining with Missouri in another investigation of the Net Zero Banking Alliance. This is an alliance made up of several of the nation's and the world's largest banks to focus on carbon reductions. Together they make up 40% of the banking industry here in the United States. And so they have tremendous leverage to, for example, deny loans to companies who might not be on board with certain ESG policies. And of course, if that's the case, they could be running afoul of several antitrust laws as well as other laws. So that's what we're doing on the ESG front today in your Indiana Attorney General's office. But I'm also here to discuss some major wins since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in the pro-life fight that's been going on for decades. We're making strong and steady progress in protecting women's health and safeguarding unborn children. Day by day, we are building a culture that respects the lives and well-being of all Hoosiers. Our office's most recent win is with the dismissal of a lawsuit challenging an Indiana law requiring physicians, hospitals, and abortion clinics to report 25 listed abortion complications to the Indiana Department of Health. This week we are fighting back against leftist organizations, specifically the ACLU and Planned Parenthood, in a lawsuit they filed attempting to challenge the new abortion restrictions recently signed into law, and that take place September 15th. Quite simply put, the left can't stand a culture of life, and along with all the progress and protections that we've secured in the pro-life movement to date. But Hoosiers themselves respect and value all lives, including the lives of the unborn, the most vulnerable among us. The ACLU and Planned Parenthood push back every time there was a win for liberty the unborn. And my office will not back down in the fight to protect these future generations. The Indiana Constitution says nothing about securing the right to abortion, the main plank the ACLU is now relying on. The state has outlawed abortion before, during and after the time of constitutional adoption. So there simply is no right to an abortion. The text, history, and structure of our Constitution excludes any serious argument that abortion is a fundamental right in our state. So on behalf of Hoosiers, I look forward to defending us against this lawsuit. So at this time, I'm happy to take some questions from those in our audience, and thank you very much for your time and attention.
My name is Molly Kraft. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for Attorney General Todd Rokita. The first question is from Hannah Hillenbrand. Hannah asks, why is your office so adamant about banning abortions?
Well, thank you, Hannah, for the question. We have a culture of life here in Indiana, and that's represented by who the people of this state elect to serve in the legislature. As part of my chief duty, one of my chief duties as Attorney General is to defend the legislature in lawsuits and defend the constitutionality of Indiana's laws, including our pro-life laws. I do that very proudly. I am, as I've said at every juncture in my time in political office or running for political office, I am unapologetically pro-life. And so that doesn't change, and it's no secret that our office is going to focus on this issue, and especially when it comes to the legislature, who's recently passed good pro-life law. And I'm very proud to have, again, at least 5 wins getting the injunctions vacated from previous pro-life laws so that they are in effect now, whether that's dismemberment, abortions that are now, again, illegal in Indiana, whether it's giving notice to parents when a minor goes to court seeking an abortion, whether it's banning abortions by discrimination, or even the latest one that I just mentioned with the mandatory reporting by any physician who might happen to know of an abortion complication.
The next question is from Brandon Smith of Indiana Public Broadcasting. He writes, many anti-abortion advocates say Indiana's new law doesn't go far enough in banning abortion. In your opinion, should the exceptions for cases of rape and incest be eliminated from the law in the future?
Well, I'm here to defend whatever the legislature passes. And certainly, as I said in my last answer, as I said throughout my political career, Hoosiers know where I personally stand on the abortion issue, and that I'm for no exceptions. But my duty as Attorney General to all the people of the state is to defend the laws that are passed by lawmakers. And I am not a lawmaker, but I enforce those laws and protect those laws, and I will do so as the highest priority of my office.
Another question regarding abortion from Nikki Dementri from WRTV. Is there concern from your office on staffing issues, attracting and growing the workforce, companies coming to the state or leaving the state?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I travel the state continuously, visiting with individuals and businesses throughout Indiana. I've done that throughout the time I've been in public office, even going to every county at least once every year. I have not heard that it's a problem anywhere. I can't, and I don't think any Hoosier employers seriously think that they're going to lose employees because someone can't get an abortion here in the state of Indiana. It's just not an issue. And again, I go out around the entire state.
The next question is from Lauren Cook of Indianapolis. She asks, can you please explain how you are planning to protect Hoosiers from ESGs?
Well, thanks for that question. As we outlined, we've, with the opinion we're introducing today, which is very well researched, several pages. I think we're up to 18 or so, 17, yes. it's going to make sure everyone knows, from IMPERS to anyone else, what Indiana law is and what it isn't, and how what's tantamount under Indiana law is that investments be made with the eye of returning the highest financial rate as possible, and not to be distracted by anything else than that, including any environmental, social, or governance policies that may take away from producing the highest rate of return. In addition to that, like I said, we're investigating the investment managers along with other states to make sure or see how they might be not focusing on that financial return. And then the rating companies as well. How are they rating companies? It's to make sure they're doing it based on stability and reliability for financial return. And then the Net Zero Banking Alliance to make sure they're not violating any banking or antitrust laws. So in doing all that, and these investigations are going to be big, and they're going to take a while, and they're going to take some resources. But we think just by letting folks know, and including those that are the subjects that we're looking at this, that we can have some immediate effect, and then ultimately some permanent effect that enables Hoosiers to be confident that their savings are earning the highest rate of financial return as possible.
Olivia Covington with the Indiana Lawyer, Bob Segal with WTHR, and Leslie Bonilla Muniz from the Indiana Capital Chronicle all asked a similar question. I will read Leslie's. What's the status on the investigation into Dr. Caitlin Bernard?
Well, I appreciate that. The status is that it's ongoing. In reaction to public concern, we're looking into the standards of practice of the profession, if they were met, if any state or federal laws, including privacy laws, were violated. And just as background, based on a doctor intentionally reporting her patient's circumstances to the media, my office has undertaken a review of that act in response, again, to public concern. My comments are supported by facts, as are all statements from my office.
Leslie asked a follow-up question. Since it is ongoing, what's taking so long? It would seem to be fairly straightforward.
No, not necessarily. We're going to go where the facts take us, like we take all our investigations, and the speed at which it's concluded is really going to be determined by the cooperation we get, not only from the subjects, but also third parties that are involved and we need information from.
A final question from a citizen named Rhonda. She writes, can you address how your office is looking to address Biden's attack on Title IX?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We are involved in that matter pretty deeply. We are intervening in several lawsuits that are in different places in the Seventh Circuit, Indiana lawsuits that are going on right now. And we're hoping that we can produce some good case law results out of that ultimately. But also with regard to President Biden's Title IX agenda, where he's actually holding school lunches hostage to schools implementing this radical transgenderism be applied in our schools. We're fighting back on that as well. We're working on comments in opposition to that, to applying those rules, right? No law has been passed by Congress, I should note. It's been a rule being written and then implemented by Biden's Department of Education. So we're fighting back there, and then I'm sure there'll be litigation around some of that if it doesn't get resolved. But I think this is, I think what's happening is terrible. I think our kids need to be learning math and science and reading and not be distracted by these radical policies being implemented in our schools. So whether it's through the Parents' Bill of Rights that we've published now in its fourth edition, or fighting in court, or fighting against the administration directly and the rules that they are trying to promulgate, we're going to be there. We're going to be there fighting for parents, because it's our duty as parents to raise our children according to our values, according to Hoosier values. And I'm not going to let them be taken or subject to a radical left agenda that's really trying to take over this country at this point. Schools need to teach the basics, and I'm committed to helping those parents and those teachers, the great ones that we have, and those principals and school boards to do just that.
Thank you for joining us. This concludes today's event.
Thank you, everybody.